Hi everyone, Charles Michael here. This is my third year in a row of doing this Beatles collection kind of video. I did one in 2021, I did one in 2022, and now it's 2023, and it's January right now, but obviously you're watching this in February or beyond, so let's get into it. A lot of these you've seen before, but I obviously got more of in the past year, so... And, as I get more, I'll update you, of course. So, of course, Please Please Me 2012 repress with the Beatles UK original. You've seen those. I got the With the Beatles German pressing with the hi-hat intro on All My Loving, which is actually very cool because I've wanted the German version. It has a different cover, of course, so that's interesting to look at. Introducing the Beatles, Counterfeit pressing, USA. Meet the Beatles, USA, 1976 repress. This is the Beatles with Tony Sheridan, released in, I think, February 1964. It's an original press. It came out on MGM Records, and apparently I have Kathy K. Campbell's copy, so whoever you are, Kathy, I have your record. It has 4 songs from the Beatles and Tony Sheridan. It has a few from Tony Sheridan and the Beat Brothers, which aren't the Beatles recordings, and the rest are filler songs from a group called the Titans. So, really a sort of album that MGM made to capitalize on the Beatles' new success in 1964. The Beatles' second album, you've seen this. I actually need better reinforcements for my sticky notes there. 1968 Jacksonville pressing. I got this recently. It's a Canadian release of Long Tall Sally, which was their version of the second album. And of course, it's an 80s repress. It's on the purple label. Hard Day's Night, I got the UK version on the 2012 repress, hype sticker present, it's right here, from the 2009 remasters, so I got the British, so I think that completes my British canon, and of course my American canon has already been complete. A Hard Day's Night soundtrack, I've had that. Something New, I've had that. Los Angeles pressing. And if you notice, I've started putting like what kind of pressings the Capitol albums are from. Hear the Beatles Tell All shaped picture disc, you've seen that. Beatles Story with the graffiti Beatles, you've seen that. It's a Scranton pressing. Beatles for Sale Japanese pressing, you've seen that. Beatles 65 Los Angeles pressing, you've seen that. Early Beatles 1965, you've seen that. 1983 repress, because it's got the rainbow label meant to look like the 60s version. Beatles 6 with the Los Angeles pressing, you've seen that. Help 2012 repress, you've seen that. Help 1969 press for the US release, you've seen that. The Savage Young Beatles, you've seen that. The Beatles Greatest, I think you've seen that. It is the Netherlands album, which is some later pressing because I think it's the yellow label. This unofficial Rubber Soul from the USSR. Actually, it's from 1991, not 1992, so please forget everything I said in that previous video. Rubber Soul, 1965 USA, 80s repress. Yesterday and Today, 2021 Counterfeit, you've seen that. This is my Jacksonville pressing. It's the first Beatles record I ever got. Yesterday and Today, you've seen that. Revolver, 2012 repress, you've seen that. Revolver, USA, this is a Jacksonville pressing, and you've seen that. Sgt. Pepper Mono Original, Scranton pressing, you've seen that. Magical Mystery Tour, 80s repress, you've seen that. The Beatles, you've seen that. White Album. The Yellow Submarine, Abbey Road, Live Peace in Toronto 1969 from the Plastic Ono Band. I don't think you've seen this. I have been getting more of their solo releases, so I'm trying to bone up my John Lennon collection. So that's the 1969 concert that was released. This was released in December of 1969, so it comes before Hey Jude, which is the 80s repress. You've seen McCartney, Sentimental Journey, which is Ringo Starr's first album, and it's the UK pressing because it's the Garrett and Lofthouse cover, and it's a very slick cover. So I was able to infer that this is, and I looked on Discogs, it is in fact the UK pressing. Let It Be, USA pressing. Bukus of Blues, which is the USA pressing. This was Ringo's country album that he put out in the same year, 1970. So he recorded this in Nashville in like 3 days, which is interesting. Ram, you've seen that. Red Album, wait, is there anything in between? No. Red Album, Blue Album. Red Rose Speedway, I did get this recently. I don't know if you've seen it, but it is an original USA press from 1973. Living in the Material World, you've seen that. Band on the Run, you've seen that. This is my most recent addition to my collection as of this recording, though. If I get more, I'll be tacking those on. This is Peace of Mind. It's a 1974 bootleg, which the title track isn't actually a Beatles recording. It's not authentic, but it's interesting to have bootlegs like this because you never know what you get. Some of these are BBC recordings. Some of these are Get Back sessions. Some of these, and the entirety of side 2 is the 1965 Ed Sullivan performance, which was like recorded like a day or so before they did Shea Stadium. But yeah, Lend Me Your Comb is actually the version that appears on Anthology 1. And I was listening to this today. Well, today, I mean, when I recorded this. But, I was listening to this today and I was just thinking, man, it is so interesting to hear the anthology tracks in this rather poor quality. And this is, I guess, what people had in the 70s when these bootlegs were the thing. Of course, Goodnight Vienna, you've seen that. Shaved Fish, I think you've seen that. Best of George Harrison, Wings at the Speed of Sound, Ringo's Rotogravure, 33 1/3, Beatles of the Hollywood Bowl. This is a blast. We're like blasting through these rarities. 78, London Town, Beatles' first live recordings, Volume 1, Wings Greatest. This is a Good Night Tonight 12-inch single with Daytime, Nighttime Suffering on the other side. I don't think you've seen this. I think this is one of my more recent 2022 pickups, and it's interesting that they made, like, everyone has the 12-inch single, but I didn't know Paul McCartney and Wings did one. But it's interesting to have, and especially because this was done like right before Back to the Egg, which you've seen. McCartney 2, Rarities 1980, Double Fantasy, which I have. It's the original Los Angeles pressing. So, this was the last album that John Lennon put out in his lifetime, and it's a good album. I think, John Lennon and Yoko Ono wanted to tell a story on that album, and it was like a conversation, and each track is like a response to the previous one, and I think that's an interesting concept, so I like this album. McCartney interview, this was an interview that he did in the wake of McCartney 2. I think you've seen this already, but in case you haven't, Columbia put this out because it was like a magazine interview, and he talks a lot about the Beatles. He talks a lot about his solo stuff. So this is an interesting record. It's on YouTube if you want to listen to it. So it's very good. It's a very good interview, very thorough. Heart Play Unfinished Dialogue. I've had that for a long time. Tug of War. I've had that. Give My Regards to Broad Street. Cloud 9. Past Masters. Unsurpassed Masters, which this is a very great bootleg series. I need to get the other ones, but Unsurpassed Masters is so good. I especially love their early sessions in 63, 64, 65. They're just so good. It's so interesting to hear in the studio, like the Beatles just making these hits, and they never thought they would be hits. It's just takes 1, 2, 8, 9, 13 of From Me to You are all here. It's so cool. It's like a proto-anthology one. It's even got Besame Mucho and How Do You Do It on it. But these albums were put out in the 80s, so this was even before anthology. So somehow, someone must have gotten a hold of those acetates, which is very, very interesting. Live at the Hollywood Bowl. This picture disc is called Help in Concert, and this is made by a company called... oh, where are they? Oh, yeah, Coda Records. And they do just all these, like, concert picture discs and all these bootlegs. And they're all picture discs. And they're all from Europe, and they're all limited, and they're all, numbered. So I have number 320 out of 500 of these second editions. And, of course, it's a European picture disc. These were put out in 2016, but I have the 2020 second edition. And there are other ones too. I got, basically all of these, the new ones at the Record Guys. 701 South Leggett, Abilene, Texas. Please give them your business. McCartney 3, you've seen that. And I got Change the World by Ringo, his second EP. Because this was the only one that they had. So, and of course I kept the original shrink wrap on it. But, I mean... Come on, I opened these because they're records. You're meant to listen to these. But being that it is, like I have the original pressing because technically it is, and there's the hype sticker, and these were pressed in I think the Czech Republic. Yeah, made in the Czech Republic. So obviously this is a GZ pressing. So that's interesting, and I'll be cutting past this, I am sure, as we get into the 45s. And we're going to show you the 45s again because, one, I think I got more, and B, because I think you should see them again. It's been 2 years. Alright, this is So Bad from 1983, Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson Say, Say, Say with Ode to a Koala Bear on the other side. Ebony and Ivory. Oh, here's a new one. The Beatles movie medley, which is actually pretty hard to find these days. It's pretty interestingly edited, but this is the one that has I'm Happy Just to Dance With You on the other side. Some pressings of this 45 actually contain like an interview with the Beatles in the wake of Hard Day's Night, so that's interesting. You've seen this before, Woman. You've seen this before, Coming Up with the Live in the Glasgow version. This is a very cool, so this is very cool. So it's a promo 45, it's a one-sided record, and it says this is a one-sided record, play other side. And the other side, it's Coming Up Live at Glasgow, which is so cool. I'm so happy to have one of these. I don't think it's the most surreal experience in my life, but it's cool to own these kinds of things, like promos and pressings from different countries. So this is the rock and roll music single, Got to Get You Into My Life, backed with Helter Skelter. Here's a Venus and Mars single, Listen to What the Man Said, from Wings. I think that's a new one. Dark Horse and I Don't Care Anymore by George Harrison. You'll notice that on these white sleeves, I mark them up so that I know what they are from a glance, from a distance. Whatever Gets You Through the Night by John Lennon, and I think the other side has Beef Jerky, yeah. Beef Jerky, which is the instrumental, I think. My Love, backed with The Mess by Paul McCartney and Wings. And then Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth by George Harrison, backed with Miss O'Dell. Photograph by Ringo Starr. And Oh My and Step Lightly by Ringo Starr. We have Live and Let Die by Wings. And on the other side, it's I Lie Around, which I actually haven't heard before, so it's funny. There's still a bunch of records that in this collection that I may have heard once when I first got them, and then I never heard them again. Well, I'm going to pull that out, actually. keep that out. So, Hell and Wheels by Paul McCartney and Wings, backed with Country Dreamer. Cut a lot of this. Jet and Let Me Roll It for Paul McCartney and Wings. It Don't Come Easy and Early 1970 by Ringo Starr. Then we have Back Off Boogaloo and Blind Man from Ringo Starr. Of course, Imagine and It's So Hard by John Lennon. With the White Apple label. Uncle Albert Admiral Halsey and Too Many People by Paul and Linda McCartney from the Ram album. Double A side here, My Sweet Lord and Isn't It a Pity by George Harrison from the All Things Must Pass album. Instant Karma by John Lennon. The other side is Who Has Seen the Wind by Yoko Ono. I think this, What Is Life and Apple Scruffs by George Harrison from the All Things Must Pass album. The Long and Winding Road and For You Blue. We're getting into the Beatles now. Let It Be and You Know My Name, Look Up the Number. This is an interesting one. It's Come Together and Something on the Salmon Capital label, which I didn't know existed until I got this in the past year. Of course, I already have Come Together and Something on the Apple label. Ballad of John and Yoko and Old Brown Shoe on Apple. Get Back and Don't Let Me Down on Apple. Alright, we have Give Peace a Chance and Remember Love on the Apple label. You'll notice that I did get a lot of new white sleeves to put all these unprotected 45s in, because I do want to take care of my 45s now. So we have Hey Jude and Revolution, first Apple single in 1968. We have Lady Madonna and the Inner Light. And we have Lady Madonna and the Inner Light. I put different font because they are different fonts. And same here on the other side, the Inner Light. So that's interesting to have. I think they might be different pressings because the different fonts are usually indicators of different pressings. I don't know which, but Discogs has the answers, so don't depend on me for Beatles trivia. As the last 2 years have shown, I'm not very reliable. So, I'm just a big fan, that's all. Hello, Goodbye, I'm the Walrus on Capitol. I think it's gonna start another file now. All You Need Is Love and Baby You're a Rich Man on the Salmon Capital. And All You Need Is Love and Baby You're a Rich Man, I mixed it up. And All You Need Is Love and Baby You're a Rich Man on the Swirly Capital. Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields Forever picture sleeve. Eleanor Rigby and Yellow Submarine on the Salmon Capital. Eleanor Rigby and Yellow Submarine on the Swirly Capital. Paperback Writer and Rain on Apple. Paperback Writer and Rain on Capitol. Nowhere Man and What Goes On Capitol. You've seen this before. It's this Japanese EP with 4 songs from Rubber Soul with Michelle, Girl, Nowhere Man, and What Goes On it. Let's see. We Can Work It Out in Day Tripper on Apple. And then Yesterday and Act Naturally on Salmon Capital. Act Naturally and Yesterday on Apple. This is the big just streak of Act Naturally and Yesterday. Yesterday and Act Naturally on the picture sleeve with the Salmon Capital. And the Pink Jukebox single, which you've seen before, but I just like showing off because it's interesting to see colored vinyl. Yesterday and Act Naturally, Purple Capital, Jukebox single. Alright, Help and I'm Down on Capitol, and this Help is actually the mono version, so it has the different vocal take that was recorded later, specifically for the movie. Ticket to Ride and Yes It Is, and it's original because you could see that it says from the United Artists release 8 Arms to Hold You, which was the original working title of Help. I suppose they wanted to do 8 days a week, 8 arms to hold you. They must have an obsession with the number 8. But that's funny. 8 days a week, I don't want to spoil the party. Picture sleeve. I Feel Fine and She's a Woman on Capitol. I'll Cry Instead, and I'm Happy Just to Dance with You on Capitol. And I Love Her and If I Fell on Apple. And I Love Her and If I Fell on Capitol, original press. A Hard Day's Night and I Should Have Known Better on Capitol. Can't Buy Me Love and You Can't Do That on Capitol. I Want to Hold Your Hand and I Saw Her Standing There on the Salmon, Capitol. I Want to Hold Your Hand and I Saw Her Standing There on Yellow and Orange Swirl, Capitol. Do You Want to Know a Secret and Thank You Girl on the Oldies 45, which is the VJ sub-label. Do You Want to Know a Secret and Thank You Girl on Black VJ. From Me to You and Please Please Me on Oldies 45. There's a Place and Twist and Shout from the 80s Rainbow Capitol. Twist and Shout and There's a Place on Tolly Records. Love Me Do on Both Sides, a promotional DJ single on Capitol from 1982, 20th anniversary of the recording of Love Me Do. Love Me Do and P.S. I Love You on Tolly. I think this was one of my more recent grabs, so that's very cool to have it on Tolly. Original 64 Tolly pressing. And this is an interesting release. It's on Collectibles, the British Import series. I don't know how this was made. I don't know how this was legal or anything. I don't know how this is official, but it's a Beatles. It's the Hamburg December 1962 performances of Till There Was You and Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby, which is very interesting because I didn't know that they made 45s out of the Hamburg tapes. Of course, you've seen these before. Ain't She Sweet and Nobody's Child on Atco with the Bernard Purdy overdub drums. And My Bonnie and This Is My Bonnie and the Saints on MGM. So that's all the 45s. And let me go make another. I also thought I'd film a segment on my Beatles cassette tapes, since I haven't done this before. It's not that expansive. I might be getting into more of the cassettes, so let me show you what I do have. The Beatles' early years, which contains the December 1962 Hamburg recordings at the Star Club. This is a, I think, Mexican pressing of the White Album with this interestingly altered track list. So I guess that's how they wanted to make the White Album fit on one disc, or one tape rather. Here's a Capitol tape of so the case has part 2 on it, but I actually have the cassette for sides 1 and 2, disc 1 if you will. It's got back in the USSR through to Julia. So I buy all these tapes secondhand, you know. I have no idea why it's in the wrong case. Capitol cassette for Yellow Submarine, which also includes Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, After All You Need Is Love. So that ends off side 1, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, which is very interesting for this Yellow Submarine tape, because Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is not on Yellow Submarine, but they put it on this tape. And this is my most recent addition to my Beatles collection at all. The Beatles Anthology 1 on cassette. I want to get all 3 of them. Want to get all 3. And this, by the way, is a very interesting, like, nesting doll. So there's 5 of them, and they're in the Sergeant Pepper outfits. So John, Paul, George, Ringo, and a Beatle. Just thought I'd film this quick segment as a bit of an addendum here. As far as DVDs go, the only new Beatles video that I got was The Beatles Get Back on DVD, which came out back in July, and I'm happy to have it because I was pretty upset that it was going to be a Disney Plus exclusive, but I'm happy to have it on DVD now. And yeah, just watch out for the documentary on that, and that's all I got.